May I now request Mr. Pawar to open the floor for the Q&A and moderate the session?
Okay, so now we are going to open it for Q&A, and you can ask whatever you want, and Vishy will give you the right answer, as always. Okay. So just quick show of hand, people who have a question on their mind, just to understand how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have 4 to start with. So please introduce yourself. And if you're from a student, which year, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, wherever, whatever your background is, and then question to Vishy.
Okay, so hello, sir. I am Atharv Degawkar from 4th year CSE. So my question to you is, how do you relearn the things you have learned in the earlier days? So as you mentioned that computers have changed the way of preparing for the things. So you have actually been through a process of relearning how to prepare for the things. So can you explain with some of your experiences that how you can try to relearn the things or rethink about what you already know? We generally tend to run away from the things that we know and we are expert on. But there can be some things which are good and which can be explored much. So how do you treat with it?
The first step would be to do an analysis of how I do something. And it may be that even though I'm good at it, or think I am because my results with it are good, there are details in the execution that keep stumbling. So and after a while it feels unnatural. If you improve too much on the way you do things, it doesn't feel like how you used to do things. But on the other hand, it is glaring at you. The mistakes in the execution are there. Which means that if your opponent could have played differently here, the result would be different. Basically, that's what it means. Then sometimes it's just good to wipe this thought from your head that I'm good at this. Easier said than done, but in the process it gets better. And then see, let me consider all the new material and why I don't think of it. So when I look at a position, the first thing I take is from I don't even look at all the legal moves. I immediately take my top 3. And then if I force myself to look harder, I can look at, let's say, option 4 or 5. But then you slow down. I mean, in training mode, you slow down, you think, fine, I've thought for 10 minutes and option 1 looks clearly the best to me. Option 2 fails for this reason. Option 3 fails for this reason. And then you ask someone to check what you gave as your justification. And here I would say it's very important to pen down what you actually mean. So you have to give all the details in your answer for it to be effective. Because 1 second later, once you see what the right answer was and for what reason, you'll find your brain suddenly remembers that, yes, actually I saw that as well. So in order to avoid that fallacy of incorporating the answer into what you think you thought, to write down so that it's frozen, and then you can see, oh, I didn't see this move, I didn't see, and this is why the breakdown logic happens. And you try to slowly incorporate the new ideas, that you never did consider before. The next time around you think, why can't I include them? The good news is once you start doing that, you'll find that these new ideas, you'll try to incorporate them everywhere. And so your range as a chess player has expanded. And I mentioned, over time, this adds up. Can give you one more analogy. This is a situation I often face, which is I get to some town, and then I pull up the maps and try to see where I'm going. And I might. So the normal thing is to take all the steps, keep them on your phone and follow them. But every once in a while, by the way, I'm a horrible, I get lost very, very easily without anything. So I sometimes, to make it more interesting, I'll try to think, if I was looking like in the old times with an old paper map, and I had to just memorize 3 steps and remember how to get here, will I be able to do it? And I'll think, And then when I go walking, it forces me to be more attentive to the landmarks because I'm looking for that one landmark without which I can't. If you can check your phone every few minutes, not the same benefit, but if you can do this. And I found that a couple of times my navigation skills actually improved. Highly controlled experiment, I agree, but it actually improved because I would get to the second point. Good, okay, so I'm here. And now I have to do this 3-4 steps I remember. Then again, look, make sure you're not missing. But the advantage of trying something new is you're forcing yourself to be attentive. Same thing happens with chess. If it's a new move, it's slightly unfamiliar, and it doesn't feel like muscle memory, then you concentrate more. So I mentioned earlier, we don't concentrate, you don't remember things that you have seen too often. You don't concentrate if it looks easy to you. But if you think you're going to get lost, as in the map, or you think that you are not familiar with the mechanism, as in the chessboard, then you concentrate better. So that's the trade-off.
Okay, the second question in the mic in the meanwhile can come here. Someone raised a question here. Yeah.
Hello, Rishi. I'm Dr.
Hi.
Pankaj. I teach marketing here at NIIT University. So you said something like curiosity can be cultivated. So I would like to know how would you help your student to cultivate curiosity, because that is one part where we as faculty struggle sometime because we need to make our students cultivate that curiosity part.
So a chess player is often guilty of this. I'll go to a tournament. I'll be so focused on the tournament that I don't realize anything about which city I'm in. So you have this typical experience of a traveler that you were in a airport, it could be anywhere. You were in a city, you could be anywhere. And you play a tournament and you come back. And afterwards somebody tells you, did you have a nice trip to that country? And you realize it could have been anywhere, and you didn't pay any attention. It was very. But over time, I found that by the 10th time you go to a city, you think this is ridiculous. I should really take the time and go look around. Which means, but you feel guilty at first because you think you're neglecting your game, and it feels almost like you're taking pleasure. But you force yourself to do it. Try to find a few things that interest you, go see a museum, ask a friend to show you around something. And then you come back and you think, you know what, I feel better. This was actually a nice experience and I learned something about the city. And by the way, I understand why the people in this country behave in a certain way or they're like this because, you get a little insight. And you can do this by having interesting people, making friends easily. They don't have to be deep friends, but you make friends easily because people will tell you unexpected things, and that's how you find out. So, same thing. If you have a couple of hobbies and you're generally curious about the world, that will also come naturally. So you can have a curious environment and you'll tend to repeat it. So with these youngsters, I tell them, on the rest day, just get out. Go for a walk, don't look at chess because they'll want to come back and work for the next game. I'll tell them, move out and do this. As I said, they're all 17, 18 now. A bit early, but maybe in 5 years they'll remember what I said and do it. That's possible. Again, I know the sense when you're that ambitious professionally, nothing else gets into your head. But I also know that there'll come a point when you really have to do these things.
Thank you.
So that's the next question. Then can I have a show of hands? Yeah, Mike goes there at the back. That 2 questions, then we'll come there. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Devashish. I'm a casual chess player, but my background is in physics. My question is, when you were an up-and-coming chess player in the 80s and you were on a path that no one else had been on, how were you setting up checkpoints or short, medium, long-term goals for yourself when you didn't know what the path ahead was?
I felt quite liberated at that point. Not sure liberated from what, but anyway, I felt quite free. one of the things is almost anything I did was the first time an Indian had done it in chess. So by the time I'd passed the title of Grandmaster, that was the situation. I went World Junior Champion as well. I didn't have the feeling that there was anything I had to do, but I thought I'll go through the World Championship cycle and see how far I get, and it was fun. So I had this dual thing where, on the one hand, the world title was a goal, so it was clear to me that if I passed level 11, then I would go to level 12, and if I passed level 12, I would go to level 13. I could not stop. That was obvious. But at the same time, I didn't feel too much pressure that I had to do something, and it was a nice sweet spot to be in.
Great. Thanks. So we have two questions there, and the mic in the meanwhile can go. There was a question on this side. Yeah, please go ahead, both of you, one after the other.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Agneshwar Raichaudhary. I'm from BTech second year. So my question is, throughout your career, how have you managed to stay in the present and without thinking about what would happen next? And how much do you trust the process? As to see.
Mostly it's been self-correcting. Several times I've made the mistake of getting ahead, worrying about things in the future, and realizing that the intermediate steps were not assured in the first place, and it's thing. So the biggest teacher has been painful experience. A couple of times you think, what am I going to do in the 13th round? And then you lose the 11th round, you think, that was stupid. So habit will teach you. And in chess, but probably in life as well, defeat will help you course correct, and it's a very natural thing. How do I stay in the moment? Again, it's mostly learnt like this, but I have found that an attitude of going to the game in a good spirit, which in a spirit of, it's not about worrying about what my opponent will do, but just to think, I'm going to sit there and what the hell, I'll solve whatever my opponent does. I'll face it. And if I lose, I lose. And I will enjoy the problems that I face on the chessboard instead of only worrying if I can get it right. That correlates well with my best results. And I discovered that in a funny way. I had some streaks of very, very bad results. Famously, in 2001, 8 months, I didn't have a good result. 2013, when I lost my title, more or less a year and a half of really bad results. Then 2017, after like one and a half months of bad results. And each time at the end of the result that really just broke the camel's back, so to speak, I was sick of the game, but I'd already committed to a tournament. So I went to that tournament thinking I'll just play 3 decent games and come back. And I'd go and win the tournament. So, and you can see this pattern. The obvious question would be then, why can't you do that all the time? And the problem is very difficult. Sometimes there are equally examples where I've really wanted to do something, I worked very hard for it, and I got it as well. It's easy to be flippant. I think in the end, I feel it's mixed. If I worked very hard for a tournament and really tried hard and it actually worked out, then that work, there will be a surplus which I can apply in the next tournament and go more relaxed for that one, and it balances out or something. A lot of the steps I say, they seem obvious based on one experience, but then if you ask me why I don't do it all the time, I can't explain. It's like saying, well, don't be ambitious, be happy, you'll do well. But we're stuck with ambition, so it's that sort of thing.
Yeah, this question right next to, yeah.
Hello, sir. I am Pranav Sani. I'm a BTech second year. So I just have a really naive question. Is there any advice you could give to someone who's like started playing chess?
Practice often. Just practice often. It's the only way to get well. Simply, let's say you have a coach. If you don't practice, you'll have no questions to ask the coach. And if your coach gives you some advice, unless you play it out, you'll have no idea if it works or not. So definitely you can read books, consult coaches, ask people for advice. All that is very good, but it only makes sense if you're practicing often. So play 5 games a day. If you play 5 games, play 10 games a day, and so on. So.
Good afternoon, Vishy. I am keen to understand how the. Yeah, I am Gautam More from the university, Director for Educational Technology Projects. On the learning sphere, I was keen to understand how the Russians train. Like when you said, when you started the academy, you had 4 grandmasters. How many do you think they would have when they started that way? Many more? That's a trivial question. I have one more. Yeah.
Okay. Again, they took their most promising players. Botvinnik famously, so he was born in 1911 and he was world champion from 1948 to 1963 with some interruptions. And he famously picked Karpov, who was born in 1951, then went on to become a legendary champion. He picked Kasparov. And there's a famous photo which recently was published again. Kramnik, Shirov, some of the most promising youngsters. So class size varies, but always they took the most promising juniors and brought them together.
Okay. In terms of the training, when you are elaborating, you are saying you do not, while you do look at permutations and combinations of a move, you also understand that it's not certain that move may happen, and therefore you go by intuition at a given point in time. With the Russians, do they look at intuition at all, or do they only go by permutations, combinations, given the rigorous training that they get into? What patterns would you have seen since you have interacted with them?
Everybody runs into the same problem, that the game of chess is so deep that you have to trust your intuition.
Okay.
And intuition is not some random thing you're born with. I mentioned confronting fears and studying positions that I've neglected, and even reinforcing positions that I have studied a lot. My intuition for the bad positions get better when I play them 10 times. Because my brain has something to process. So intuition is something you develop. And you are never going to solve, you're never going to play. There is no structured method in chess to actually find moves at the chessboard. There are too many options.
Okay.
And everything's thing. I mean, first of all, it's big enough problem, the best moves on both sides. But what do you do if your opponent makes the second best move? What are you supposed to do? Because if you've been obsessing about the best move, then you'll have to shift. What if your opponent is purposely making the 4th best move, but your pathway to success is very narrow now? Are you used to those kinds of positions? The only training you can do. You cannot. Individual scenarios are too many to nail down. So you have to just develop skill that when you sit there, you'll make decent. What I refer to in the other answer as well. I'll sit there and I'll deal with whatever turns up because I'm confident in my work. I think that's the way you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Vishy.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Deepak Khanna. I am faculty here. So my question is non-chess related. At what age did you decide that chess was the purpose of your life? And secondly, was there a plan B? Because you started way back in 80s. So suppose this does not work out, then was there a plan B to fall back on?
Yes, I would say that most chess players who end up as professional chess players did not decide to become a chess player. They just never saw a reason not to become one. In this way of thinking, my goose was cooked when I was 6. Essentially, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And at some point, the arguments could mount against this decision, and then I would think otherwise. I was very fortunate. At every moment when I might have hesitated, I had very good results. So 10th standard, I became national champion. First time that you hesitate, which stream you're going down. 12th, I became world junior champion. And when I finished my BCom, which was my plan B, I was in the top 10 in the world. And after that, then I understood, even as a grandmaster, I felt I can make a pretty decent living as a grandmaster. Now I don't need to worry. I mean, the biggest danger is you end up some artist, but no clear regular income, that sort of thing, right? But now I felt, okay, I can do my chess and it'll be okay. And then when I became top 10, then it took care of itself. So I was fortunate, but I think most people who don't become chess professionals, but played the game through all their junior years, they will tell you, no, at some point the evidence just mounted against, and I had no choice. But you feel like that's a choice they made, but then they were forced to do something else.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Chitra Narayanan. I'm a journalist with the Hindu group. And I'm a friend of NIIT also. So my question was on your, you talked about how there is gradually more and more data coming in, about statistics and 51% of this works and all that. This over-reliance on do you always go by the data, or are there times when you overrule the data and say skip it? Can the data lie? That is question one. The question two was slightly unrelated. You talked about, taking a downtime when things are not going well. When something painful happened and you're like hitting chess or something, you take a downtime, do something else and come back. Conversely, if something is going great, you're on a roll, if you take a break, does that end up harming you because you got distracted, by taking that break? So these are the two questions.
Okay, as for data, I will say there's a reason people do it, because it points you in all sorts of new directions. It's a lot of new information, and there are a lot of benefits to it. I would describe it like this: just like an athlete who trains regularly, taking a break of 2 days, nothing is going to harm that athlete. Somebody who's working in the most modern way in chess can say for 1 week, I'm just not going to do it, and will not suffer the consequences. But if you start saying, I will not work in the most modern methods, so you can incorporate the older ways of thinking because it helps you clarify your position in your head. But you cannot neglect the best ways of working. Some people, what they do is they force their trainer to do all the data tracking, and they don't. But then it's very specific assignment of roles. The trainer is going to do all the stuff, but present the material in the old way. That's fine. But if you don't use the most modern methods, well, you're handicapping yourself. As for relaxation when you're doing well, it's the same as taking risks and doing new things when you're doing well. It should be done, but we forget to do it. And it's easy to feel so successful that you forget to do it. But in fact, the people I admire the most are the ones who, at the peak of success, they make changes. They take an approach that has worked perfectly for them and say, well, it's not going to last forever, so I'm now going to add new things and change new things. And change at the top. That's much better than to do it after you've been hit on the head. But most people remember to do it when the second happens.
I wish the Indian cricket team had changed their lineup between the semi-final and the final, right?
That's an interesting thing. I really felt that because of and this happens very often in most sports, that when one player is very dominant, you should not forget and disrespect an opponent, and I'm not saying that they did, but I'm saying an opponent who understands what they're up against, then they feel they have fewer options and they're more willing to take big risks. So things which could fail badly, but also could succeed wildly. And in my opinion, the Australians were just more courageous on the last day. So I don't know that, we could have revamped the team, but it's easy to second guess. Maybe we could have lasted one game more, I don't know.
Hello, sir. I'm Adhira, a second year IMBA student from Chennai. So you mentioned that BCom was your plan B. I am currently 18 in my plan B right now. So I just wanted to ask, what do you have to say for people who want to pursue their plan A, but again, we are not sure, right, if that would be a success. I'm sure like you had, as you mentioned, you had places where you were unsure. So what got you through that? Like, I'm sure you had support, but other than support within yourself, what made you think, okay, I can do this. I want to do this.
I'm curious, what was your plan A?
I actually wanted to do literature.
Okay, good. I'm sorry, your question just begged it, but I had to ask. As I mentioned, I was very fortunate with the timing. I had my difficult results in 8th and 9th standard, let's say, and then I hit the jackpot at the right moment. Then again, 11th standard, some tough results. In fact, 2 years I was trying for the Grandmaster title. I got the title right after my +2. And that's when you think, should I really pursue this or that? I was very lucky with the timing. And the setbacks were manageable. I was quite fortunate that I had setbacks, but nothing which made me really question my my sense that I was going to be a chess player in the end of this. Besides, you only had to see me doing BCom to understand this was plan F or something, really. And there was no plan B to D to B to E didn't exist, and this was ridiculous. But I don't know why I felt I could be a good accountant by popping up in the college few days a week, but somehow it felt responsible to go to college, that's all. There was no real plan to it.
So your plan A is to be active in the clubs here. You still have a chance.
Sure, sir. Hello, sir. I'm Ananya Malhotra, second year IMBA student. So in any field of life, when you do good again and again, people start expecting more and more. So at this point, how do you deal with failure? Because for me, when I'm doing something good and even a small thing happens bad, I really get demotivated and a lot of things come to my mind. So if you could advise me, how should one manage failure?
Your question suggested pressure by people's expectations of you, and how I managed this for the most part was getting into a bubble during tournaments. Important matches, I would even get into the bubble earlier. Before my world championships, I would stop reading any chess magazines and even newspapers. I would ignore the sports section and just read the other bits. Or I would only read things where I was sure my name wouldn't come up. Because it's, once you read someone saying, I think he has no chance because he does this, or I think he's the favorite because he does this, even if you want to ignore it, it's sitting in your head and you bounce. You know the effect. Someone tells you, don't look at that green, and then afterwards that's the only thing you see, right? So you get that feeling. I made it a point to be oblivious to all this. And it was job of other people to fill this thing. So my trainers were supposed to see if somebody had said something useful or not, and mention it if they thought it could be useful to me, but not the personal stuff or what fans think. My feeling was, if I do a good job afterwards, I can always explain myself to them. So I understood there would be pressure, there would be expectations, but I cut myself off from them. And if you don't think about them, then they kind of blend away.
I'm 62-year young veteran, drifted into education, and I've been raising my hand, trying to beat the younger lot behind. You know, in the army, they call them as Colonel Keen Kumars, you know, all those who keep raising their hands. Vijay, my question to you, I have a comment and a question. I've always admired, I think soldiers need to learn this art of thinking 3 steps ahead as what's going to happen, and at least the opponents. And I thought that's an important skill that needs to be developed at a very young age. So when I was commanding a division, I introduced chess as a tournament across. And it would start at a section level, go to platoon, companies, and the finals were held at the div headquarters. And what was surprising was that one of the youngest soldiers beat one of the officers in the finals. Okay. And this was telecast by everyone, and it had a huge impact because the soldier began to know that he can think as good or even better than an officer could think. And that was a great thing. whenever I went, I finished my inspection by playing chess with the youngest soldiers. I mean, not with the officers. And I have a photograph of playing chess at, there's a place called Nathula, which you would have heard of, where the Indians gave a bloody nose to the Chinese. And there's a post next to that, a little higher. So the photograph is of 15,000 feet. I'm playing chess with them. My question to you is that, like we have physical training daily and firing occasionally, it's not a daily thing that you fire because the range is not available. But thinking 3 steps ahead is a skill which everyone in the forces needs to have. Is there something that you could devise? I mean, this is something which I'm leaving behind. And army is a huge organization, so are the paramilitary forces and the others. But the reactions are based on anticipation and looking ahead. Is there something that you can design which we could co-opt into the army and introduce it without cutting down? Something additional part of the curriculum that you could design, something which you could design. Chess is there, you can learn chess, but something, 10 periods of chess, which we could introduce, where people can pick this up as a hobby. That's my question to you.
It's interesting what you said, because the obvious thing that, while I'm not comparing the discomfort, playing chess under uncertainty, that is sitting at the board while not knowing what the best move, not even knowing if what you're seeing makes sense or not, and still trying to make decisions under that pressure, is very different from doing it in a very controlled environment in training camps. So you have to bridge that gap. And the first question that popped up to me was, well, after all the physical stress of being a soldier, the marches and thing, and then, so it's nice to fire in shooting ranges, but it's another thing to fire under pressure. I hardly need to explain that, but any training then has to happen only under those, maybe you have war games or something for this. I think that level of thing cannot be learned by metaphor, so you cannot learn it from something else. But what could be good is surprisingly, when people are very stressed, having an enjoyable hobby takes your mind off something for a while, and you react better to difficult decisions at that point. So during a chess game, I found that sometimes getting up, going, making myself a tea and taking a deep breath calmed me down. When I came back, my decisions were slightly less chaotic than when you're fully wound up in the tension of a game. And maybe chess could do those roles. I'm out on a limb here, but if in a difficult moment they could play a game of chess, it might take their mind off something for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have some school students, a very, very special school in Gurugram called Vidya. Most people are not aware of it, but one of our board members, Professor Mishra, he was director of IIT Bombay many, many years ago. Prior to that, he was in IIT Delhi as a dean, and his wife did some exceptional work in setting up a school within the IIT Delhi campus for children of the staff and class 4 staff and so on. And that she carried on when she went to Bombay, and then she got from the government of Haryana a good big plot to put up a school which is in one of the areas near one of the older villages within Gurgaon. And I had a chance to visit, so has Vijay gone often, and we are truly amazed to see how well the students of that school are doing. And so when Professor Mishra came to know that this was happening, he said, can the children from that school come? So I'm delighted that all of you are here. I think we have the principal here, or one of the senior teachers also here. Yes. So you people have some questions at the back? Some of you? Yeah, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Aditi, and I'm a 12th standard student with science as my background. So I would like to ask that whenever we start something, we are on a journey, and for a journey, we have some particular plans set in the back of our mind. So it's not important that whenever the things go as we have planned or as it should be, sometimes the things go against our expectations. So how to cope up and how to manage the situation when things are not in our favor and as we have planned?
You should see plans as just a way to warm up the brain, get the brain thinking in a certain direction. It's more or less an axiom in chess that you will end up somewhere you didn't expect to be. But at least all the work you've done at least ensures that it's not wildly off where you expect it to be. Which means that you've lessened the chance that you're totally unfamiliar with what's going to happen. And second, you plan for as many scenarios as possible. A broad chess player will always be more flexible than a deep chess player. So you cannot super specialize in chess. You can, but at the same time, you must have an acceptable level in everything, and then you can be excellent in one thing. But if you're just excellent in 3 things and hopeless in 7, you'll lose every third or fourth day. And that's the thing. So to answer your question, you should bake into your assumption that things will not go according to plan. But what I said earlier, if you're a good scientist, then you can deal with it. The same principles apply in the universe. You'll deal with it. Your mind, but most of the time it'll be futile. Your mind is a very strong entity on its own, and it's. I'm simply trying to be very optimistic with the title, but you have to recognize some limitations.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Megha Singh, and I'm a third-year student here at BTech CSE. So we've heard you talk in detail about how life and chess are closely linked. So my question to you is, have you ever tried to use a chess strategy on life and failed at it?
Just strategy with your wife, she said.
We played a game once, and I very wisely offered a draw after 14 moves. And I must say that it wasn't only pity, but I was quite impressed that simply by watching tournaments, she had managed to pick up, she had navigated the first 14 moves quite well. And I thought it was a fair result at that point, not to push my luck. If you mention life, then I think the only takeaway from chess that apply in life is I see that in chess, despite being really very good, I can still, a lot of my impulse decisions can be wrong. And so in other walks of life, I take it as an assumption that my impulse decisions will be wrong, and I try not to get too excited about it. If the field where I train so much it can happen, then of course it happens in areas where I'm not very good at.